Welcome into a brand new episode of the Whole Story Podcast. I am the host, Alex Fuse, and we have a very special guest with us today. He is the owner and CEO of the Round Rock Express, a AAA affiliate of the Texas Rangers, Mr. Reid Ryan. Reid, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the podcast today.
Happy to do it, Alex. Good to see you today, my man.
Minor League Baseball almost here. I'll ask the question, if anything doesn't happen at the Major League level, will there still be minor league baseball games?
Yeah, that's the plan right now. We've been told that there will be a season. I was actually a player back in 1994 when there was a work stoppage that year, and the minor league players, we played our season. I was actually in Hudson Valley that year, and then we went to spring training the next year. And so, I think with coming off of the lost season in 20, kind of the COVID year last year and some of the things that happened with the later start, that they know these guys need reps. And so I think you're going to see minor league baseball have a full season in 2022.
We'll get into minor league baseball and your passion for it later on, but you mentioned your playing days. Was it ever challenging for you to grow up in Texas and play in the warm to compare to where you had to play growing when you got into minor league ball in the cold weather nature of the Northeast?
Well, I was always there in the summertime. Now,
okay.
I did play in the Alaskan League 2 years, and
Did you?
It was summertime, but it was still a little cold up in the great Northwest. So, we were blessed that we had warm weather. What's interesting about the state of Texas is in the spring, when you start playing, especially in like Dallas-Fort Worth, where I was at TCU, you'll have a day that's 80 degrees, and then you'll get the next day, it'll be 35 degrees. And so we had a few of those really cold weather days, but for the most part, always had good warm weather baseball.
What surprised you most about playing in the Alaskan League?
It was the quality of player. I had so many big leaguers that, ended up being major leaguers that were on my team. Calvin Murray, Kyler Murray's uncle, Brooks Kieschnick, Steve Soderstrom, Brant Brown. I mean, we just had a bunch of guys that ended up sort of playing in, kind of the late 90s, early 2000s. It's changed a lot. Back in the day, when I was playing, there was the Alaskan League and the Cape Cod League, and that was really it. Today, there's a lot more college wood bat leagues. We ran one a couple years ago in Round Rock and the Texas Collegiate League, and I just love the summer baseball. I think it's great that the NCAA allows these college baseball players to go out and get reps in the summer and be in these minor league-like experiences. And now that Major League Baseball has cut back the number of teams in the affiliated system, a lot of these teams, like in the Northwest League and the Draft League, which was some of the New York Penn League teams, are all, getting to have college baseball as well. So great for players and good for fans and good for the game of baseball.
There had to have been a moment, and correct me if I'm wrong here, where you had to decide if you wanted to play baseball or not. Were you ever hesitant to play the game, or were you more motivated growing up in the family you did?
No, I love the game of baseball. And I also played basketball and thought about playing basketball in college, had some opportunities. But the bottom line was I felt like, look, I had a better opportunity to become a professional in baseball and probably have a better college career. And even though I never had the arm of my dad, Nolan Ryan, played 27 years in the majors, 51 major league records, I was a different kind of pitcher. But my dad always encouraged me to just be the best me that I could be. And that's what's really neat about the game of baseball. You can be any size. You can be from Aaron Judge to Jose Altuve. You can throw 100 miles an hour, or you can be a guy that's left-handed and soft tosses it. If you can spin it, you can spot it, you can do something to help your team. There is a spot for you in the game of baseball. And I think that's one of the great appeals to so many people, is that everybody realizes what that's like to catch a ball, to throw a ball. And they may never know what it's like to have a 350-pound lineman push on you, or, a 7-foot, 3-guy dunk on you or post you up. But everyone realizes what it's like to catch and throw a baseball.
When do you think you realized that?
Well, It was probably when I went off to college. I played all the sports, and I think there's a benefit to that. Kids don't do that as much today. And it wasn't really till I got serious about baseball when I went off to the University of Texas. I played 1 year for the Longhorns, and then I ended up transferring to TCU, mainly because of a guy named Tom House, who was the Rangers pitching coach and worked with my dad. He agreed to work with me and really try to help me out. And it wasn't until kind of that summer after I left the Alaskan League at the end of summer that I really started to focus on baseball and really want to try to, make a career out of it or be a professional and then eventually work in the game.
You mentioned the family aspect of this. For the people, again, you mentioned earlier, but you're obviously the son of Nolan Ryan, the Hall of Fame pitcher. What was that like, just growing up around the game of baseball ever since you were born?
Well, I tell people it was every kid's dream. I spent my summers traveling around with a big league club, flying on the charters, bat boying, working in the bullpen, shagging and going all over, all the major league ballparks. So it was great. A lot of good life lessons as well along the way when you're with people that are the best of the best in their craft. You see what it's like to be a professional, even these guys with great natural ability, the kind of work ethic that they put in to stay on top, and just how hard it is to be a major league player on a daily basis. And over the course of my dad's 27-year career, there were lots of guys that came in, ton of talent. A year or two, they were gone because they didn't become professionals. And so a lot of those life skills rubbed off on me. And I tell people it was the greatest childhood anybody could have ever dreamed of.
How would you get to the games if you wanted to see your dad play?
Yeah, so no Uber back then. So during the summers, I would ride to the ballpark with my dad. A lot of times we'd leave around, 1 o'clock. It was about a 30-minute drive, 45-minute drive to the Astrodome back in the day. But then there were times where I would go on road trips and my mom would put me on a plane, different era, give me $40, jump on a plane. I'd fly to San Francisco, take a cab to the ballpark and show up at Candlestick Park and just walk into the clubhouse. So different era than it is today with security and flights and all that. But just somehow always found a way to get to the ballpark.
What was the youngest that you found yourself traveling almost by yourself?
Normally 10, 11, 12 years old, something like that. By the time I was 12, I had my brother who was 8, and we were flying around the country going to games, and I was in charge.
What do you tell people on the planes?
No, we were just going to the game. It was different world. People weren't worried about a kid flying on a plane. If you kind of felt like you knew what you were doing and you acted responsible, they left you alone.
What did you learn most, just the life skill component of you being 12 years old and navigating an airport by yourself?
Well, so my dad gave me a lot of responsibility. We also had, property with animals. And so when he was on the road, a lot of times there were responsibilities there for my brother and I, especially as we got older and got into our teenage years. And so really what I took out of all of that, the being around major leaguers, the traveling around the country, the being at home when my dad was at spring training or on the road was, look, I'm giving you a responsibility and it's up to you to help the family out, to help the team out, and to do the job. And I think too many times in life, people don't give kids, give young people, give young employees enough responsibility. And I've tried to do that. I'll use an example of my son, Jackson, who's worked with you on some of these podcasts. When Jackson turned 16, he was playing on a travel baseball team. I was the president of the Houston Astros, and I couldn't drive him to Waco to go to a tournament. And I said, get in the car and drive yourself. And it's 3.5, 4 hours from Houston. And he didn't want to do it. I said, just get in the car and figure it out. Drive, worst, you get in a wreck. We'll figure it out. And after that day, it built so much confidence in him because he drove to the tournament. He played the tournament. He drove home. And he realized that, look, to whom much is given, much is expected. And I was given great responsibility as a kid, and the expectation level was high. I've done the same for my children and all the people that I've managed over the years. I've tried to do the same thing. So, we don't have room on the team for people just to take up space. If you're going to be on the team, you need to bring something to the team. And that's the way my dad treated us as kids, was that we had a role to play. It didn't matter our age. And I appreciate him giving that to me, because it definitely changed my life and made me who I am today.
And again, you're currently the owner and CEO of the Round Rock Express and other ventures. What's the most fulfilling piece of your role today?
Well, we've got other partners, so I'm not the only owner of the Express. We have the Sanders family and a couple of former major leaguers and myself. I love the group. It's a great group of people. But where I really, truly get my joy is when people come to the ballpark. I've worked at the major leagues. I've worked in the minor leagues. I've been a college player. I've kind of done everything in between. And it doesn't matter the level. It doesn't matter if it's pro ball or amateur ball. People coming together at the ballpark around a team, uniting a community, and coming and enjoying a summer night out of watching kids, players chase their dream, whether that dream is to make the major leagues or whether that dream is to win the World Series. There's something American about that. And there's something about the ballpark experience that everyone leaves better. They leave closer. They leave more fulfilled. They leave feeling better about their community and their country. And I think it's our secret sauce to this game of baseball.
I was around the Round Rock Express this past season, and just being at the Dell Diamond and being around the team, it's just incredible. And it's a testament to just your family and the ownership group of the Express. And it's a thrill to be around.
Well, so we're going on 23 years, kind of losing the 1 year to the pandemic always kind of messes me up on how many years we've been going here. But the success we've had has been built on every person that's worked for the Express, from Jay Miller to Dave Fendrick to George King to every usher to Chris Almendaris and Tim Jackson today. And it's finding a group of people that see the value in baseball, that want to serve others, that want to help these players achieve their goal of getting to the big leagues, and that see that baseball teams make communities better. And so it's an honor to get to be in this game. I tell people that we have to hold that responsibility in very high regard. And so our job is to try to make sure when people come to the ballpark, they leave their cares at the gate and they just have a good time with their fellow man. And for the players, we try to make sure we give them an incredible environment to achieve their dreams, which is to make the major leagues, or those that have been there to get back. And you only do that by giving guys, good facilities with the right support staff and trying to make sure it's easy on their families. And so that's what we've done. And I think it's one of the most fulfilling things I get is that industry insiders, people in the game of baseball, the scouts, coaches, rovers, players, they love coming to our ballpark because they always say we do it right. And so that makes me feel good.
You mentioned the success over the last 23 years. How do you dictate or perceive success in the game?
Well, look, I think success is when you look in the mirror and say you've lived up to your potential. And so, it's not monetary, it's not attendance, it's not awards. Those things are nice, and that's outside validation from others. But I think the inside validation is, did I do the very best job that I could do? Did I live up to my potential? And so this last year, the Express, historically didn't have the same attendance we had had in the past. It was quite a drop. But I thought it was the best year we ever had as a staff, because we had zero groups. People were not doing groups with, COVID going on and everything that was happening in the world. We kind of started the season with mask and social distancing. And then the middle of the summer was kind of like the old days and, packed and people having a good time. And then the Delta variant hit kind of towards the end of the season. And so we just had to adapt and adjust. And so at the end of the day, I felt as though this year, with what we had to do with the testing of the players and the travel and, everything from shifts of players coming in the locker room to pitchers being on the field and stretching while the position players were in. It was constant change, and it was unlike anything I had ever imagined. And so if we can do it in a year like last year, no matter what happens this year, I think we'll be ready.
You're listening to the Whole Story podcast with myself, Alex Fuse, and Reid Ryan. Reid, you were the president of the Astros from 2013 to 2020. Yep. What was it like winning a World Series with the Houston Astros?
Well, there's one of my favorite pictures right there I've got behind me, it was incredible. As a kid growing up as an Astros fan, born in the city of Houston, having had my heart broken in 80 and 86 when my dad was on Astros teams that had chances to go to the World Series, especially 1980, where he was on the hill with a 3-run lead and, going to the 9th inning, and we didn't get there against the Phillies. It was a deep sense of pride that this group of men that I got to be a small part of delivered something for this city that has yearned for a championship for so long. Houston's a great baseball town. So many players come out of this area. I mean, you can just, start naming off the quality of players, especially pitchers, from Nolan Ryan to Roger Clemens to Josh Beckett. I mean, you just go down the line of incredible fireballers that have come from this area. It was a big deal. And, even though my time is finished now with the Astros, there will always be a deep sense of pride that we were the group that was in charge when the very first World Series was ever won. And, so far, the Astros have been to 4 World Series. I've been a part of 3 of those and was a part of the one that we won. And so it's very cool to have been in that position. And I'm honored that Jim Crane gave me the chance to do it.
Obviously, you mentioned backstory when you were growing up and being able to have to be at the playoff games when your dad was on the mound. What was it like having Jackson, your son, and your 2 daughters be a part of that victory as well back in with the Astros?
Yeah, so, I think for me, the best part of the Astros was getting to have my son Jackson grow up around the clubhouse. He got a lot of the same experiences that I got, and I think those experiences, benefit a person more than they even know in the moment. 17, my daughter Victoria and Jackson were in LA, and my wife Nicole. Unfortunately, my youngest daughter Ella was not there. She was in school and didn't make the trip. But to have those kids and my wife get to celebrate, I wish my mom and dad had been there, but they were not there either. But my brother was. It was just one of the greatest nights of my life, and it was a deep sense of satisfaction and joy that I tell people can only be described like your wedding day or like the birth of one of your children. It was that type of deep emotional sense of pride.
Well, Reid, this is my favorite part of any interview I do. It's a fast 5 quick round. It's 5 quick questions, and you have as much time to answer them. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
First one, what is your favorite MLB ballpark besides Globe Life or Minute Maid?
I've always loved Wrigley and Fenway, and hats off to the Cubs and Red Sox for being able to adapt the clubhouses and a lot of the revenue drivers at those ballparks while still keeping the quaint feel and the history of the game. I think one thing that a lot of people in today's game miss is that history still matters to those of us that love the game of baseball. And so if more people could do what the Cubs and Red Sox have done, I think the better. Glad the Dodgers are doing it. I also like Dodger Stadium and the Angels Stadium, which are also older ballparks. I think keeping those parks has been good for our game.
What is your favorite minor league baseball giveaway?
I'd probably say the bobblehead. There's something about bobbleheads that people love. And anytime you get a unique one, I get people that send them to me. And although I don't have a bunch of bobbleheads sitting around here, Jackson collected them as a kid. And so I used to love to get them and give them to him. And in our garage, we have boxes and boxes full of his bobbleheads. So maybe one day that'll be worth something, but I don't know. We'll see.
Do you have a favorite bobblehead?
It's hard to say. I kind of I like the mascot bobbleheads. I think are always neat. But yeah, that's probably my favorite. The mascot's probably the Puffy Taco in San Antonio. I'd say that's my favorite bobblehead.
If you could host a podcast with anyone in your phone contacts, who are you choosing?
Phone contacts. I've got a lot of interesting people in my contacts, as you can imagine. Probably say Kevin Millar, because I think he does such a great job of entertaining and then also being knowledgeable in the game of baseball. Another one is a guy that we hired with the Astros who has a good podcast, Bleacher Blums, and that's Jeff Blum. He's also very entertaining and has a deep knowledge of the game. So probably one of those two guys.
If you could play one position that you didn't really get a chance to play, what one would you choose?
Shortstop. I was a shortstop in Little League, and I love the position because you're really in on every play on the field, and you're moving so much. I ended up moving to third and pitcher in high school, and then just pitched in college. But in my mind, I'm always been a shortstop.
And then the last one for the Fast Five, do you have a favorite sports movie?
I do, man. I love sports movies. I've always been very fond of Caddyshack, which, was sort of the movie of my era. But if it was a baseball movie, I always go back to Bull Durham.
The best. Reid, the last question I always ask people for the first time on my podcast is this: if a 15-year-old kid walked up to Reid Ryan right now and said, Reid, I'm not a fan of the game of baseball, I'm never going to watch it, what are you saying to that 15-year-old kid?
You're missing out. You're missing out on so many levels. Most people that aren't a fan of the game of baseball, they don't understand the game of baseball. And once someone takes time to learn the game of baseball, then the possibilities open up. Small ball versus swinging for the fences, pitching versus defense versus, being aggressive on the bases. There's so many ways to win. It is so much like chess that people don't realize it. And so I think that's what's important about getting kids out to the ballpark. It's where I think minor league baseball plays a big role, that if kids can find the ballpark experience being fun first before they ever watch on TV, and they learn that experience, then they can take that to a deeper understanding as they get older.
Well, Reid, I want to say thanks so much. You're one of the best in the business, so I appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
All right, man. Thanks, Alex. Appreciate it, buddy.